Hello, welcome to your Level 8 Vault Rapid Review. We're first going to go over some vault specifications. So just a reminder that only tape or Velcro is allowed on the runway and only chalk is permitted on the hand placement mat. If there are any unauthorized markings, there will be a 2/10 deduction if it has not been removed after a warning. It is the coach's responsibility to make sure that the tape measure is secure along the runway, and this would not be a reason to repeat the vault without a penalty. For your hand placement mats, those are only permitted for your front handspring onto the board, and your round-off entry vaults may not be placed on the runway for any other vault. Your vault will be void if the safety zone mat is not used for the front handspring onto the board or your round-off entry vault, and will also be void if the safety zone mat is not secure around the board. Safety zone mats are allowed to be used for any other vault, but are not required, and they do not have to be snug around the board. Alternative springboards are not allowed to be used at any optional level, and if they are used, that would be a void. That includes your junior board. Please note, though, that some manufacturers do call their lighter weight boards a junior board, and as long as they are 48 inches in length, they would be allowed to be used. Gymnasts are allowed 3 attempts to successfully complete 1 or 2 of their vaults, and a balk or can be one of those attempts. It's considered a balk if the gymnast falls during their run, stops midway on their run, runs off the runway, or contacts the board or vault table without coming to a rest or support on top of the table. New for this year, the vault number must be visually displayed at any sanctioned meet that uses a 4-judge panel. And that can be done by flashing the score, writing it on a whiteboard, writing it on a chalkboard, or anything of that type. At any other competition, the vault name or number can be said to the judges. There is no deduction for performing a vault that is different than the one that is announced or flashed. If a gymnast does vault without a signal from the chief judge, the vault's not scored, even if both judges did see it, and the gymnast can perform 2 more vaults. The chief judge applies a 5/10 penalty to the average of the next completed vault. This is when it's a good idea to use your green flag, because sometimes the setup of the vault makes it difficult where the gymnast can't see the judges. So if you're waving that green flag, it might be easier for them to see. Some coaching deductions. Just a reminder that at level 8, if the coach spots the post-flight phase of a salto vault, the vault is scored, but there would be a 1-point deduction applied by each judge. And another exception is that the coach can stand between the board and the vault table for any round-off entry vault with no deduction. And just a reminder that if a coach catches a falling gymnast, the spot deduction is not applied, but the 5/10 would be applied for the fall. For timing falls, there is a 45-second time limit, and that begins when the gymnast first stands on their feet or after a medical assessment has been completed. If the fall occurs on the first vault and the 45-second time is exceeded, the second vault is not allowed. Some clarifications on your Group 1 vault. The turn in pre-flight can be done with a quarter turn or a half turn on. And if they're twisting in both the first and second flight, the twist can be in either direction. And for your Group 3 vaults that are Sukahara vaults, that lead arm is allowed to have a slight bend with no deduction. Some new deductions for this year. Your prescribed LA turn begun too early is now up to 3/10. It used to be up to 5/10. Your under rotation of all vaults is now up to 1/10, where in the past it had been a flat 1/10. Arm swings to maintain balance is up to 1/10, and that only applies to a stuck landing on vault. Everyone should now be aware of your 0.15 deduction for your medium step. And everybody should be pretty familiar of this new squat on landing deduction guideline. As long as the gymnast's hips are parallel or above their knees, there is no deduction. And the lower that the hips go below their knees, the greater the deduction. So that's an up to 3/10 deduction for a squat. If the gymnast has a deep squat and then also falls, you're going to apply both the 5/10 for the fall and the deduction for the squat. So if they're all the way down to the bottom and they fall, that could be up to 8/10 deduction. And these are some new vaults for level 8. We're not going to go over them right now, but just make sure that you have the most current vault chart printed before you go to your next competition for vault.
And that concludes the level 8 rapid review for vault. Thank you, Silky.